You might have came across a system in your daily operational work through which you need to create some request, and post creation of that request, your manager need to approve that. Post manager approval, it will go to your manager's manager for their approvals. Very common in kind of incident management tool, or when you are going to create some tickets for production deployment. Do you know how to create such system? Very complex, no? But it's not. If we'll follow design pattern. Chain of responsibility design pattern will provide you ready-made answer for this one. So do watch this video till the end to find out that implementation. And before going further, please click on that red icon called subscribe. Guys, join me today's design pattern party, and today's party is on chain of responsibility. Chain of responsibility is part of behavioral design pattern. You might ask me, what is behavioral design pattern? For them, I'll request you go back and check my video on design pattern and design principles. On high level, behavioral design pattern is something where we'll talk about object interaction, how one object act or react to another object. Okay. Before we'll go into deep, few points to remember. First thing, that chain of responsibility is part of behavioral design pattern that we have just discussed. Second thing, this is the pattern where the request object goes through some approval process, just like we have discussed, like incident management tool or production ticketing tool, where you need approval process, and that kind of system you can build by using this kind of pattern. Okay. You can also get some kind of similarities with relay race, where one runner pass on the baton to the next runner until he or she will reach the final destination, right? Same thing also happen here, and that's why it's called chain of responsibility, where first object will check that this is that object responsibility to execute that part or not. If it is not, it will pass that responsibility to the next object along the chain, and so on and so forth, right? So that's why, I mean, it's chain of responsibility, and I believe now you got to know that what is the essence behind this pattern. Wait, I'll show you something through coding too, how to implement these things, and you will get clear idea about this thing. Thanks for your time. Here is the example for today's session. You can see here I have created one class like chain of responsibility, which is type of abstract. So guys, I mean, I just tried to create all these classes like this way: chain of responsibility, then chain 1, chain 2, and chain 3, so that you can able to relate it better. Okay. So coming back to that example, so here you can see under this chain of responsibility abstract class, we are doing basically two things. One, the next chain method, where we are setting the action of the next chain item, and second, the handle chain method. This is one abstract method, and derived class will implement these things. Inside this, we'll have that execution process for that current class. Okay, so how we are doing it in the next chain method, if you can see that we are passing chain of responsibility parameter. I mean, this method will expect the passing parameter should be of type chain of responsibility. I mean, you can name it anything, but as I mentioned, that I just tried to name it, relevant to the chapter. Okay, so if you change this one, then you have to change this one and this two. Okay, so inside this next chain method, what we are doing this property allocation. The passing class object should be mapped to your local parameter. So that's the thing we are doing here. Cool. Next thing, if you can see here, the first implementation or first class or first chain, whatever you can say here, chain 1, which is deriving from chain of responsibility. Here you can see, right, that handle chain. This is the main method, which are going to override. What we are doing here inside this handle chain, we are just first checking what is the request object. What is the range of this request. If it is 0 to 10, then maybe the requirement is like that, that chain 1's execution points belongs to 0 to 10. Okay, so in that case we are handling the things over here. If it is beyond that, then we are moving that to for next chain action to property next dot handle chain and passing the request object as parameter. So other classes also will be like that only, like chain 2 and chain 3, and the same kind of implementation. Only change you can see here the request object range, because that is the requirement, right? I mean, what we have done here, that we are telling that for chain 1, if you'll get the things request item from 0 to 10, you should do. For chain 2 is between 10 to 20, and then chain 3 it's from 20 to 30. Okay, similar kind of implementation across 3 classes. And ultimately inside this client program, what we are doing, just creating 3 objects from these 3 classes, chain 1, chain 2 and chain 3, and just using this first chain object like h1 dot next chain, we are setting h2, we are passing h2, so that means the chain is getting built over here, that h1 next chain is h2. Similarly for h2 next chain we are setting as h3. So now if you call this h1 handle chain, that means you're just going to use that first class object, I mean chain 1 object, and through that if you pass this value like 1, 9, 10, 19, 20, 29, the interesting fact is there that you don't need to do anything else. Depending on the scope that you have defined for each and every classes, I mean just have another look for these classes, right? This is chain 3, 20 to 30, I mean else if it's going to do for the handle chain. This is chain 2, which is for 10 to 20. Otherwise it will pass on to chain 3 and then chain 1. I mean this is the first one. So 0 to 10, actually 0 to less than 10, 0 to 9, be very precise, and then 10 to 19 for the chain 2, and then from 20 to 29 for chain 3. Okay, so like this way it will go on. Here is the output for chain of responsibility. You can see here, depending on the passing parameters, the range values, the specific class method got executed. For example, when we pass something between 1 to 9 is chain 1. Then 10 to 19 is moved on to chain 2. Post that, when we pass something between 20 to 29 is chain 3. So you can see here that the request object pass the things throughout the chains, chain 1 to chain 3 and so on. So this is the whole life cycle of chain of responsibility. I hope you are now clear about chain of responsibility design pattern, and you know where to use, how to use. Friends, that's all for today. I hope you have enjoyed this session too. In case of any queries and concern, please get in touch with me. I'll be more than happy to help you. So I'll come up with another session very soon. Till that time, stay tuned. And before concluding this session, I am just requesting you, please click on the subscribe button if you have not done it yet. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience.